New Year's Eve, 1968. A guitar hits the stage, a frontman walks away, and a band called The Small Faces die in fury. What came next conquered America faster than anyone predicted. 4 marathon sets captured on tape. 1 million albums sold. But here's what the charts didn't show. Every scream at the Fillmore was tearing tissue that would never heal. The voice that made them legends was being destroyed by the very sound that sold. Steve Marriott gave everything. The road took more. This is the rise and fall of Humble Pie. New Year's Eve, 1968. Alexandra Palace in London. The Small Faces are on stage, one of Britain's most beloved mod bands, riding high on the success of their psychedelic masterpiece, Ogden's Nut Gone Flake. The crowd is electric, the energy palpable. Then, without warning, their frontman, the diminutive powerhouse Steve Marriott, just throws his guitar down and walks off. Leaves his bandmates standing there like 3 lemons, stunned and abandoned in front of thousands of confused fans. That moment wasn't just a tantrum. It was a declaration of war against everything Marriott had built. The Small Faces had given him fame, chart success, critical respect. They'd conquered the British charts with hits that defined the mod movement. But beneath the success, Marriott felt creatively suffocated. The band had reached what he called its limitations, and he couldn't breathe anymore. He wanted something heavier, rawer, more fundamental. He wanted to get back to the blues and R&B that had made him fall in love with music in the first place. The music of Wilson Pickett, Ray Charles, the raw American soul that spoke to something deep in his working-class bones. The pop orientation of the Small Faces had become a cage, and Steve Marriott didn't do cages. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. By March 1969, the split was official. The music press mourned the loss of one of Britain's finest bands, but Marriott wasn't looking back. He immediately set out to build something new, a supergroup that would let him chase the sound burning in his head. His first recruit was Peter Frampton, a talented young guitarist and vocalist from The Herd, whom Marriott had recently mentored and produced. Frampton was only 19 years old, but already recognized as a rising star with teen idol looks and serious musical chops. Then came Greg Ridley, bassist from the progressive blues rock band Spooky Tooth, and 17-year-old drumming prodigy Jerry Shirley from the Apostolic Intervention. 4 established players coming together under one name, Humble Pie. The name itself was ironic, a wry acknowledgement of the massive expectations placed on this collection of proven talent. From the start, there was a problem nobody wanted to admit. Marriott and Frampton had fundamentally different visions for what Humble Pie should be. Marriott was a blues shouter, driven by volume and raw emotional power. Frampton favored melody, sophisticated arrangements, often acoustic sensibilities that showcased his guitar virtuosity and smooth vocals. These weren't minor stylistic differences. They were opposing philosophies about what rock and roll should sound like. Their first 2 albums in 1969 exposed this fracture to anyone paying attention. The debut, As Safe as Yesterday Is, introduced their nascent hard rock edge with tracks that hinted at the power to come. But the second album, Town and Country, tried to have it both ways, mixing pastoral acoustic ballads and country rock alongside the heavy blues material. The mixed approach failed commercially. Both albums sold poorly in America, the market they desperately needed to conquer. The American audience didn't know what to make of a band that couldn't decide if it wanted to be heavy or mellow. They needed to commit. And the choice they made, the choice that would define everything that followed, was to go all in on hard rock. What nobody calculated was the toll that commitment would exact on the man who would have to deliver that power night after night. After signing with A&M Records in 1970, Humble Pie made a calculated decision that would alter the trajectory of their career. Forget the studio albums, become a touring band. Their records weren't charting. Their self-titled 1970 album didn't even register in the US, and 1971's Rock On limped to a dismal number 118 on the Billboard 200. But something remarkable was happening on the road. Their live shows were building a devoted following across America, city by city, venue by venue. Fans who caught them live became evangelists. spreading word about the raw power they'd witnessed. Marriott later acknowledged this debt plainly. "We owe America something because they turned us into a touring band." The transformation into a pure volume machine was completed by late 1969 during a crucial run of shows at the Fillmore West in San Francisco. Peter Frampton had been struggling with his semi-acoustic Gibson, which fed back uncontrollably at the high volumes the band now demanded. The guitar simply wasn't built for the sonic assault they were creating. During one of those Fillmore West shows, a fan and musician named Mark Mariana approached Frampton and offered to loan him a modified 1954 Gibson Les Paul Custom, solid body, built for sustain and power, with pickups that could handle anything. That guitar, which Frampton named Phoenix, became his signature instrument for the next decade and can be heard on every subsequent Humble Pie recording. The strategic shift was working. By May 1971, Humble Pie had earned what the music press called a sizzling live reputation. They were the band other bands feared opening for, the act that could blow headliners off their own stage. Club owners loved them because they always delivered. Fans came back again and again, bringing friends, spreading the gospel. The plan was to finally capture this energy on tape at the legendary Fillmore East in New York, the ultimate proving ground for any band that claimed to have live power. Promoter Bill Graham ran the Fillmore East like a military operation. Triple bills with multiple acts, 2 shows per night, with early sets starting at 8, and late shows that could stretch past 3 in the morning. It was a grueling schedule designed to extract maximum value from every ticket sold. Over 2 nights, May 28th and 29th, Humble Pie recorded 4 complete sets. Each performance was a physical gauntlet, demanding they deliver maximum intensity multiple times with minimal recovery. It was a marathon that pushed Steve Marriott's vocal cords to the absolute limit and beyond. On stage at the Fillmore, something transformed. The band that recorded careful studio tracks became something entirely different under the lights. Frampton described it as, like the gloves came off, a ferocious, almost violent energy that couldn't be captured in a controlled studio environment. Freed from the constraints of 3-minute pop songs and radio-friendly arrangements, they extended their blues and R&B covers into massive improvised jams that could stretch 10, 15, even 20 minutes. The audience didn't just listen, they participated, feeding energy back to the band in a continuous loop of intensity. The crown jewel of those Fillmore sessions was their 9-minute version of Ray Charles's "I Don't Need No Doctor." Marriott's voice on that track is pure fire, sustained high-register screaming, emotional intensity that grabs you by the throat and doesn't let go. He's not just singing the song, he's living it, channeling every ounce of frustration and power and raw emotion through his vocal cords. It was a performance triumph that defined what Humble Pie could be at their absolute peak. It was also a breaking point. The very success they were capturing on tape was being recorded at the moment of severe vocal stress, the moment when Marriott's instrument began paying a price that would compound with every subsequent performance. Released in November 1971, performance rock in the Fillmore was everything Humble Pie desperately needed. The double album hit number 21 on the Billboard 200, peaked at number 17 in Canada, and was quickly certified gold. It became the definitive document of the original lineup, the recording that finally captured on vinyl what audiences had been experiencing in concert halls across America. The album's success was driven primarily by the edited single version of "I Don't Need No Doctor," which became an immediate FM radio staple. Program directors who had ignored their previous studio efforts couldn't resist the raw power of this live track. The single climbed to number 73 on the Billboard Hot 100. And more importantly, it cemented Humble Pie's identity as a pure, uncompromising blues rock powerhouse in the burgeoning American arena rock scene. The live album's success was so substantial that it retroactively pulled their previous studio effort, Rock On, to gold status as well. America had finally embraced them. They had broken through. They were selling records, filling arenas, living the dream they'd fought so hard to achieve. Except the dream had a price nobody had calculated, and that price was about to come due. The irony cuts deep and cruel. Peter Frampton left the band shortly before the live album's release. He'd watched the music get heavier and heavier throughout 1971, watched the quieter, more acoustic side of Humble Pie systematically eliminated in favor of pure volume. He felt the need to regain control, to prove his range beyond screaming blues, to be in charge of his own destiny rather than serving Marriott's increasingly extreme vision. The market had validated the extreme, heavy sound, which meant there was no room for his melodic counterweight anymore. The blueprint for success had been established, and it didn't include acoustic guitars or sophisticated arrangements. Humble Pie immediately replaced him with Clem Clemson from the progressive band Coliseum, and dove even deeper into heavy blues territory. Their next studio album, Smokin', released in 1972, continued the commercial ascent and further established the band as one of the definitive hard rock bands of the decade. Their influence extended to everyone from Aerosmith to Van Halen, bands that studied Humble Pie's ability to channel blues power through arena rock intensity. The industry had spoken with this unmistakable voice of commercial success. The sound that sold required Steve Marriott to prioritize pure, untamed volume over everything else. And that meant his magnificent voice would have to keep delivering the impossible, show after show, night after night, with no relief and no recovery time, indefinitely. The new lineup, Marriott, Clemson, Ridley, Shirley, plunged into an even more relentless touring schedule than before. They were chasing the massive commercial opportunity the Fillmore album had created, and the only way to capitalize was to be everywhere, constantly. They played across America and Europe throughout 1972 and 1973, appearing on massive bills with Edgar Winter's White Trash, Aerosmith, and the Jay Giles Band. Arena shows in every major city, stadium gigs, county fairs and college campuses and everything in between. Every single night demanded the same intensity, the same volume, the same vocal assault that had made the Fillmore recording so powerful. Steve Marriott was blessed with natural gifts that made him exceptional. His wide tenor vocal range, his ability to channel raw emotion, his instinctive understanding of blues phrasing, these were talents that couldn't be taught. But sustaining that pitch and power, night after night after night, while screaming complex R&B lines in massive venues with the primitive monitoring systems of the early 70s, was physical torture. And Marriott wasn't giving his voice any time to recover. The schedule didn't allow for rest. The next show was always tomorrow, the next city always waiting. The lifestyle made everything exponentially worse. Drugs, booze, poor choices, bad behavior. These weren't just rock and roll cliches, they were factors that actively accelerated his decline. The combination of chemical abuse causing dehydration, inflammation from the constant substance use, and the relentless vocal strain of nightly performances created a perfect storm of destruction. By the mid-70s, the damage was becoming audibly manifest, and critics began noting the decline. Later, Humble Pie performances were frequently described as having devolved into what one reviewer called the sweaty, bombastic, screechy side of rock. Other commentators were even more brutal, describing shows from this era as unbelievably awful, featuring a booze and coke-saturated Marriott blowing his voice out, night after night. The artistic collapse was a direct consequence of the physical price paid for commercial triumph. The very intensity that had made them legends was consuming the instrument that created that intensity. The very thing that made them great was what finally took it away, and everyone could hear it happening in real time. By 1975, Steve Marriott was finished. Disillusioned by the relentless demand for extreme volume, crippled by deteriorating health, facing a voice that no longer responded the way it once did, and watching his bandmates struggle with their own demons, he made the decision to disband Humble Pie. The dream was over. The machine that they'd built to conquer America had consumed itself from within. What followed was a slow, painful descent into relative obscurity that stood in stark contrast to his early promise. Marriott's solo albums failed commercially, unable to connect with audiences who remembered his former glory. Multiple attempts to reunite various configurations of Humble Pie throughout the late 70s and early 80s were uniformly short-lived and ill-fated. Meanwhile, his peers and former bandmates, Rod Stewart, Ronnie Wood, Peter Frampton, achieved far greater long-term commercial success and industry respect, while Marriott watched from the sidelines, his damaged voice preventing him from reclaiming any meaningful spotlight. Eventually, Marriott grew deeply disillusioned with the entire mainstream rock industry, so he made a choice that surprised the industry but made perfect sense to anyone who understood his journey. He retreated. Marriott spent his final years playing in local pubs and clubs around London and Essex, returning to the R&B and blues he'd always loved, performing in relative obscurity for small crowds who appreciated the music for its own sake. No record company pressure, no demands for hits, no exhausting tour schedules, just the music, played honestly, for people who cared. The man who once commanded the Fillmore East, whose voice had sold 1 million albums and influenced an entire generation of hard rock vocalists, was now playing to crowds of 50 in neighborhood bars. Not because he'd lost his talent or his passion, but because he'd given everything to the machine, and the machine had taken everything in return, leaving him with nothing but the music itself. Despite the tragic personal trajectory, Humble Pie's musical legacy remains absolutely foundational to classic rock. Their brand of bluesy hard rock, solidified by the explosive power of performance, Rock in the Fillmore, is widely considered a cornerstone of the genre. Bands from Aerosmith to Van Halen to the Black Crowes cite Humble Pie as a key influence on their approach to combining blues authenticity with arena rock power. They provided the essential template for bands that wish to transcend studio polish and capture the raw, unedited, high-octane energy of the concert stage as their primary artistic statement. The Fillmore album itself continues to inspire reverence among musicians and fans who understand what they achieved on those two nights in 1971. In 2013, the complete 4-set Fillmore recordings were finally released commercially, allowing listeners to hear the full scope of what Humble Pie accomplished during those marathon sessions. That music still matters because it was real, it was honest, it was authentic. Steve Marriott's personal story ended in tragic symmetry with the intensity that had defined his entire career. On April 20th, 1991, at the age of 44, he died when a fire swept through his 16th century cottage in Essex. The fire was believed to have been caused by a cigarette he'd been smoking after falling asleep. A final, cruel irony for a man whose various vices and self-destructive tendencies had contributed significantly to his professional downfall and personal isolation. His posthumous induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2012, as a member of the Small Faces, confirmed what musicians had always known. Steve Marriott was genuine rock royalty. He's consistently listed among the greatest singers of all time by critics and fellow musicians who recognize the rare combination of technical ability and raw emotional power he possessed. But the story of Humble Pie remains the ultimate cautionary tale about the cost of artistic integrity in an industry that demands everything. Some bands fade gracefully, others implode from ego or money. Humble Pie burned out because they gave everything. Literally everything to the sound. Steve Marriott's voice was the price of authenticity in an era when live performance defined greatness. The recordings remain, capturing those nights when he was unstoppable. But the man behind them paid a cost that couldn't be recovered. Do you remember the Fillmore album? Drop your memories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from rock's golden era.